Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share, and subscribe. So today there was testimony from Dan Duan and also Shelly Shank. So I'm going to read the Wish TV blog here, and it's just really interesting information. At 9:08 a.m., the state called Shelly Shank. Shank acted as a secretary for the investigation. She would take tipsters' names and information. Shank said she was surrounded by 50 or more law enforcement officers while working the investigation. Shank told the jury she was given bankers' boxes of reports related to the investigation and was asked to organize the reports. Eventually, these reports took 5 filing cabinets. Shank said she created a filing system with names of people of interest, tipsters, etc. Shank told the jury that in 2020, she was asked to scan every file from the filing cabinet into an electronic database. She said it took her 2 years to do so. Shank told the jury she did not read the entire context of every file, and she entered over 14,000 of them. She told the jury that when investigators were moving their headquarters, she came across some handwritten tips. One of them said a Richard Allen Whiteland had self-reported being on the trails, and girls had seen him at the same time. The tip was dated February 16th, 2017. So he self-reported himself on February 16th, 2017. Now here's where it gets interesting for me. I have a theory that Richard Allen, when he saw those 3 girls, since he has a public job, he was paranoid that one of them might be able to identify him later. And I've also thought that the image of Bridge Guy had already been put out, and he saw himself as the Bridge Guy, and he got paranoid, and he called the tip line to see, to get ahead of the story, say that he was there, because yes, these girls saw him, and he wanted to see what they had. And guess what, everybody? That part of the story is true now. In my prediction was that he came forward after the image was released. Look at this date of the Fox 59 article is February 15th, 2017. That is the day after the girls were found, and they put out an image of the guy on the bridge. When Richard Allen saw that, he panicked. The very next day, he called the tip line. I believe law enforcement should definitely bring up the date that this was released and time it with Richard Allen. It's absolutely incredible. Now I really, really believe that Richard Allen was trying to get ahead of the story. 3 girls saw him there, and now there's a picture of him, and he thought somebody might recognize him because he knows that's him. All right, back to Wish TV. So look at that. The tip was dated February 16th, the day after that image came out. Shank said she pulled the written tip about Allen being interviewed in 2017 and changed the file name to Richard Allen. She told the jury she made this discovery on September 21st, 2022. So let's see. Shank said she pulled the written tip about Allen being interviewed in 2017 and changed the file name to Richard Allen. And she says it says Whiteland, and it might be because the street that he lived on is actually, Whiteman Drive, so maybe that was even missed. But when he wrote the name down, he might have heard him say Whiteland, but he lives on I think it said Whitland, right? But this is Whiteman Drive that Richard Allen lives on. So some errors right there. Yes, right there it says Whiteland. And it says that tip was dated February 16, 2017. Shank told the jury that her job was not to decide if a tip should be followed up on, that she simply was tasked with organizing. Under cross-examination by defense, Shank said the mistake on Allen's name was made before she joined the investigation. Defense attorney Andrew Baldwin asked Shank, "There was no other tip to your knowledge that involved Richard Allen?" Shank replied, "To my knowledge, no." She told the jury there were so many tips that she couldn't remember individuals. Baldwin asked, "But you would remember if there was a tip about a man covered in mud and blood walking on 300 North. Shank said she could not remember specifics. The jury asked Shank, "How do you determine the name was incorrect on the file?" Shank replied that being from the area, she knew there was a Whiteland Drive. But it's actually, that's not the name of the drive, it's a Whiteman Drive. Okay, it's not Whiteland. I don't know if this is an error in the reporting, and she doesn't say Whiteland, and maybe they're just mispronouncing it here, but I remember in the documents we saw before, it said Whiteman, not Whiteland. And then the testimony from Dan Dulan himself. This is the person that we've all wanted to listen to and hear what he has to say for years. At 9:59 a.m., the state called Dan Dulan. I feel like I should be playing a drum roll, etc. Dulan is a captain with the Department of Natural Resources and has been a conservation officer for 26 years. Dulan had worked across the state of Indiana, but had worked in the Carroll County area for 10 years. He told the jury he became involved with the investigation on February 16th, 2017, and that's the same date that Richard Allen called the tip line. Dulan said he was tasked with assisting with the following up on leads. He told the jury he received a lead on Richard Allen, and he contacted Allen by phone. Dulan told the jury that he requested to meet with Allen at his home and then at the police headquarters. Allen refused and requested that they met at the grocery store parking lot. Dulan said he met with Allen in a grocery store parking lot on February 18th, 2017. So again, Richard Allen called the tip line on 2/16. The image of Bridge Guy was already released, and those three girls had seen Richard Allen. I believe he was trying to get ahead of it. Now they finally met on the 18th. Dulan told the jury they met, spoke about the lead, and Allen told him he was on the trails on February 13th between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. He told Dulan he saw three girls at the Freedom Bridge. So if you look at the map here, the Freedom Bridge is right here. This is the Freedom Bridge. So as he's passing the Freedom Bridge, right before the trees here is when he passed the three girls. So just for your geographical information, I'll do a more thorough job on this later, but here is the abandoned CPS building right here. That's where Richard Allen parked. Here is the Freedom Bridge. This is the trails. Here is the Hoosier Harvest Store that has a camera on it that picks up all the cars going east and west on West 300 North. This is the Mears Farm right here. This is the parking area. It was right in this location at the time where you could park your car, go onto the trails. This is the trail system right here that leads to the Monon High Bridge. This is the start of the bridge right there. The barriers are right there that Betsy Blair stopped off at. And by the way, that is information that I found out here for years. Betsy Blair said she was 50 feet away from the individual on platform 1, and if you measure from the start of the bridge to the start of the platform 1, it's 50 feet, so that made sense. But she told people in court that she turned around here at the barrier. Now, after measuring the distance from the barrier to the first platform, we get 114 feet, which is way further than 50 feet. So her recollection likely is very much more skewed because of that. So there's the bridge. Here is the end of the bridge where the girls were made to go down the hill. And then there's this little shallow area in Deer Creek. And here's where the crime scene was. So likely made the cross right around in here. There's the crime scene. And then just up from the crime scene is the cemetery that apparently the bridge guy walked through and started walking down West 300 North when Sarah Carbaugh drove by the Mears Farm and the Hoosier Harvest Store. She drove by there at 3:57 and then sees a person muddy and bloody. Okay, so I'll do a more extensive version of this at another time, but back to Dan Dulan here. So Dulan said he met with Allen in a grocery store parking lot on February 18, 2017. Dulan told the jury they met, spoke about the lead, and Allen told him he was on the trails on February 13th between 1:30 and 3:30. He told Dulan he saw three girls at the Freedom Bridge. So this is where they're going to connect Richard Allen to the person that the three girls saw. Dulan said Allen told him he was clear that he parked at the old CPS building and walked to the Freedom Bridge and then to the High Bridge. Duan said Allen told him he was looking at a stock ticker while walking, and there should be digital evidence of that, right? Duan said he took handwritten notes, which included Allen's phone number. Duan said he wrote up his notes into a Word document and turned it into investigators. Duan told the jury that in September of 2022 he got a call asking if he remembered interacting with Richard Allen. Duan said it didn't sound familiar, but said he would look through his records. He said he found his documents on his 2017 interview with Allen and found a fishing license for Allen and his wife Kathy. The license had contact information on them. Duan told the jury that Allen's fishing license had his height listed at 5'4", but it was changed in April of 2017 to 5'6". Duan also told the jury his weight was changed on his license to be lighter. 13 pounds were subtracted. Duan said he thought it was uncommon for an adult to change their height 2 inches. I think that's absolutely incredible. That 2 months later, he's changing his height, making him taller so it doesn't fit where what he thinks that law enforcement might be able to determine the height is. And then everybody was talking about, look, yeah, the guy's kind of a stocky person. And then he's 13 pounds lighter. At least he writes 13 pounds lighter and changes it. I think that's pretty damning information. Prosecutor Nick McClellan asked Duan if Allen was in the courtroom, and Duan described Allen. So here's the thing, everybody. I mean, how many of you would take the time to go change the numbers on your license? I mean, you just have it. It's just, you hand it to somebody to look at it. You're not really, ooh, boy, okay, it says 5'10", I'm really 5'11", you know. Well, I mean, I was 195 when I did it, but now I'm 210, I better change that. Nobody does that. Unless you're trying to disguise your real information about yourself. At 10:35 a.m., defense attorney Brad Rosie begins cross-examining Duan. Rosie said Allen called law enforcement in February. Rosie said Allen suggested meeting at the grocery store because he was already on his way there. Well, how do you know? And by the way, shouldn't Richard Allen be testifying to that? I mean, I don't know how in the hell Rosie can testify. Why wasn't there an objection to that? Duan said he cannot recall the appearance or demeanor of Allen during the meeting. Rosie said the handwritten notes would be better evidence of the meeting than the electronic report, and that Dan Duan said in a March 2024 deposition that he had no independent recollection of what Allen said to him in their 2017 meeting. Rosie said that anyone could purchase a fishing license for another person. So what he's suggesting now is that Kathy Allen went in and bought his fishing license, changed his height and his weight, etc. Duan testified he was also in charge of calling phone numbers that pinged off of cell towers during the time of the crime. He said he canvassed the crime scene the day before he met with Allen. So that would have been on the 17th. Duan told the jury that while he was at the scene, he found branches piled up with blood on them. So those are likely maybe the branches that were on top of the girls. Rosie asked Duan if he saw deer standing in the woods near the bridge. Duan said there were. Rosie asked if it is not uncommon to find shell casings in the woods. Judge Gould stepped in and said to Rosie, if you're going to impeach him properly. Rosie asked Duan if he was familiar with Smith & Wesson. Duan said he was. At 11:06 a.m., McClellan asked Duan about the credit card used to purchase Allen's fishing licenses. Duan replied that he did not know what username was used to purchase the licenses. Duan told the jury in redirect by the defense that he has not thought of Allen between 2017 and 2022. I think it's incredible that he doesn't remember ever thinking of it from 2017 to 2022. You'd think that that interview would stick in your mind, especially soon after the homicides, where you go, well, gosh, there's this guy that said he was there from 1:30 to 3:30. We should take a look at that guy. You know, you would think that happened, but it didn't, and some people just aren't good at that kind of thing. At 11:13 a.m., The jury asked Duan, what was Alan's hair like? Duan replied that he did not know. And that's unfortunate that one of the jurors asked what his hair was like, when it's pretty clear that the person that said, oh, he's got curly hair, is just mistaken, and it was the brown hat that was on his head. That seems pretty obvious, but obviously there's a juror out there that's having questions already. That wouldn't seem to be the question I would want to ask here, but a lot of these people aren't aware of the importance of Dan Dulan. So strategically, this is going to be really important because Richard Allen then places himself here at 1:30, and probably later today on the same Hoosier Harvestor camera, they're going to show a vehicle matching the 2016 Ford Focus drive by the Hoosier Harvestor and park here at the abandoned CPS building. And then he passes the three girls, Riley, everybody that they were talking about the other day, and all of them said the person they saw is Bridge Guy. And I believe the fact that the Bridge Guy image was put out there is why Richard Allen came forward in the first place. And Richard Allen passes the three girls right here, as he says. So he is now the person that is shown in Libby's video, and then he continues on towards the bridge. And we've gone over all of that in the video that I put out a few days ago. It shows you the exact timing of all the different people using an animation. So there you have it. So now we know that Richard Allen definitely would be able to have seen himself, if that is in fact him, I believe it is. In the papers, the Bridge Guy image was released, and when he saw that, and knowing that he saw the three girls, he was probably okay with the three girls, but was a little nervous about that. But once the picture of them came out, he thought, oh boy, somebody's going to recognize me. I better get ahead of this. He calls the tip line on the 16th, and then 2 days later, on the 18th, he interviews with Dan Dulan, but on the 15th, the image of Bridge Guy was released, and I think that theory is going to be accurate. All right, everybody, thank you all very much for watching. If you could hit the like button on the way out, I would appreciate it. Thank you all very much for watching, and as I always say, until next time, be safe out there. Shank told the jury that her job was not to decide if a tip should be followed up on, that she simply was tasked with organizing. Under cross-examination by defense, Shank said the mistake on Allen's name was made before she joined the investigation. Defense attorney Andrew Baldwin asked Shank, there was no other tip to your knowledge that involved Richard Allen? Shank replied, to my knowledge, no. She told the jury there were so many tips that she couldn't remember individuals. Baldwin asked, but you would remember if there was a tip about a man covered in mud and blood walking on 300 North. Shank said she could not remember specifics. The jury asked Shank, how do you determine the name was incorrect on the file? Shank replied that being from the area, she knew there was a Whiteland Drive. But it's actually, that's not the name of the drive, it's a Whiteman Drive. Okay, it's not Whiteland. I don't know if this is an error in the reporting, and she doesn't say Whiteland, and maybe they're just mispronouncing it here, but I remember in the documents we saw before, it said Whiteman, not Whiteland.